Hello everyone, welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're all good and well, and may I take this opportunity to wish you all a happy new year for 2022. Let's all hope it's a little better than the previous 2 years, but I don't want to jinx anything, so I'm just going to leave it there. And of course, I also wanted to thank you all for your contributions and comments to my top 20 albums of the year video, which I did now, what was it, 3 weeks or so ago? And yeah, the reaction to that was, much more than I was expecting, to be quite honest. And I was delighted to see all your comments and contributions on that. Now, there were some albums that were mentioned, in fact, many albums you mentioned that I should listen to and check out. So what I've done is I selected five at random, or five that I think were mentioned possibly more than once. Certainly a couple here were mentioned more than once. And I decided, in the sort of quieter part of my Christmas, I was like, I'm going to check these albums out. I'm going to see, whether or not I like these albums. A couple of these I'd had meant to get to, but I just never got to listening to them in time prior to me doing my top 20 albums of the year list. So it'd be interesting to see which of these I would consider as, might have gone on to that list had I done the list now, as opposed to when I did it earlier in the month of December. Anyway, let's crack on with things. So Stormkeep, Tales of Other Time, this sort of adventure fantasy kind of themed album, it felt like. I could hear some real immortal kind of stuff on this album, but fused with a bit of folk metal. It was quite melodic in places, got a bit of use of synth here and there, at perfect moments as well in the tracks. I liked the short instrumental tracks I don't always like, but I thought they worked quite well on this album. And yeah, like I say, I can hear a little bit of Amorphis coming in places on this album. I did really enjoy it. I think the track which really stood out for me was one of the longer cuts on the album. That was A Journey Through Storms. Well, that was a fabulous track, and that was the one that, I thought really, this album, I think, might have made my honourable mentions. I'm not sure if it would have made my top 20. Perhaps it would have been in there, tucking in the top 20, maybe just about. Yeah, really good album. I have no arguments about that. This was a really good melodic kind of black metal-y kind of an album that I did enjoy. Next up, the second album which I checked out over Christmas was 1914's Where Fear and Weapons Meet. And this was released back on the 22nd of October on Napalm Records, wasn't it? So a pretty big release that I missed. Now, I did enjoy this. I particularly liked the way that they tied in the sort of World War One themes, and that you got quite a diversity of styles as well. I mean, there were one or two tracks where they were just using what sounded like a banjo or a ukulele or something, or an instrument like that. And I liked those tracks quite a bit on this album as well. I mean, I thought that, the songs and the themes were used extremely well in the lyrics. And you can tell just by looking at the song titles what this sounds about. I mean, you can tell by the band name. I mean, 1914, right? You're probably going to get albums which are themed around the First World War. Though I haven't checked out any other albums from this artist, so that might be something I do in follow-up to this to see, how those albums compare with this one. So, yeah, enjoyed this album. Like the orchestral motifs going on as well. The symphonic tie-ins were really cool. I'm not sure if this one would make my top 20. To be honest, I just don't think it was quite to my taste. It's not that it wasn't a very good, accomplished album with a good fluidity, right from the word go to pretty much the end of the album. It had lots of merit, but I'm not sure it's one of mine, sort of more to my slightly more subjective taste. I'm not sure I enjoyed this quite as much as I expected to. I think I had very high expectations. But yeah, good album, definitely a solid album, with fantastic theme work going on here. Now, an album which I think, now this one I'm pretty sure would have cracked into my top 20 because I didn't listen to a lot of thrash metal. And this was one more than one of you mentioned. And this was The Third Attack by Ravager, which I have now got on CD as well because I did really enjoy it. This was a really fast-paced thrash album, so really up-tempo, lots of interesting riffs and changes, which I love. I like that in thrash. I don't like my thrash to be kind of too straight up without sort of anything, any kind of different flavours going on. I really felt that they changed it up enough to keep my interest throughout. This came out, I think, on the 18th of June, so it was a while back. Completely missed this out. This came out on Iron Shield Records. My favourite tracks from this one would probably be Planet Hate and Priest of Torment, which seemed like it, it had enough catchiness to it that I would enjoy singing along to Priest of Torment, though when I realised what the lyrics were, I thought those lyrics are pretty disturbing, but it was a really good track, that one, and definitely one of my favourites. This would have come in, I think, above Space Chaser as well. Another German thrash metal band, as it happens. I think Ravager would have made possibly even my top 10. This was a fantastic album that I missed. And at least now I know about it, so thank you guys for mentioning Ravager to me. That was a good suggestion indeed. Now, next on my list is Dusk's Mourn. So this is the fourth album that I listened to over the Christmas period. Fallen Kings and Rusted Crowns. Now, I knew of one of their old albums. I think it was called Legends. And this was another album I really liked, actually. It's sort of beautiful flow to it, and another album which would fit well with this kind of adventure fantasy style of music. Certainly, this is a really kind of folk metal kind of an album, with only two band members, as I understand, in this one, I think, who sort of do all the instruments. Got the vocalists. I have got their names here. I think Walter Deo doing vocals, bass and guitars, and Bill Sharp doing drums, guitars and keyboards. Now, my two favourite tracks on here were probably Blood of the Forest and Harbinger. I think those two, for me, cemented my kind of enjoyment of this album. And I think I will be going back to it more, and it will be another book which I'll probably use as kind of music when I'm reading fantasy stuff, fantasy literature, because it just felt perfect for that. A bit like, as I say, the Stormkeep album. Would this one have made my top 20? I need more time with the Dusk's Mourn album. I think I still need that bit more time with it. But it seems like a really solid kind of folk metal album, and I have loved their previous stuff. Incidentally, I don't think they're signed to a label, so it'd be interesting to see whether or not they get signed to a label at some point in the future. So that's Dusk's Mourn with Fallen Kings and Rusted Crowns. Now, the last album which I listened to was another suggestion. This was somebody's album of the year, and this is Our Place of Worship is Silence, and the album title was Disavowed and Left Hopeless. This was a pretty brutal one. It was kind of like you're in a nightmare, in a tomb somewhere with lots of undead corpses all around you or something, in a dark, pitch black tomb. You don't know what's going on. I don't know. That's kind of what the sort of vision I had when I was listening to this. It's quite an alarming. The riffs are all kind of, quite nasty, some scratchy guitar riffs, really good atmosphere though. Reminded me a little bit of a sort of Ulcerate style, but not as dense as Ulcerate, perhaps. Great soundscapes on this album. Did enjoy it. Not sure it would have made my top 20, but I think this is another one that could perhaps have been an honourable mention as well. So thank you very much again for your suggestion of Our Place of Worship is Silence. So those are the 5 albums that I missed that I listened to over Christmas that were in your comments. Do feel free to suggest yet more. I may get around to those at some point in the future. Looking forward to doing more videos in the very near future. I have been itching to get back to this since I've been away over the Christmas period. And my next video is going to be hopefully later today, later tonight even, which is going to be my review of the final episode of the Wheel of Time series, which I think a few of you guys may have been very patiently waiting on for me to talk about, and I will be doing that, all going to plan. That will be up tonight. Thanks very much as always. Do feel free to drop the like and subscribe and all that business if you're new to the channel or new viewing or whatever, and otherwise take care everybody. See you later.